Hey, it's Jeff here with the Chilliwack Vineyard. Thanks for tuning into our YouTube channel or listening on our podcast. It's great to have you here. I just wanted to jump in real quick before the message from this past Sunday and just say I really encourage you to listen to this one, especially if you call yourself a member of the Chilliwack Vineyard Community Church or if this is your home. Don't just listen to the first few minutes of this one and then tune out or check out. This is really a call to our church in this message today and talking about serving. So I really just encourage you to stick around, listen to the whole thing, and just allow Jesus to speak to you and see how he challenges you in that way. So here, let's jump into it. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was after Vern and Susan had approached Megan and I about stepping into the leadership role of this church, and we were kind of starting that transition. And I was down in New West, and I was standing on a really busy street corner. And it's kind of one of those corners, kind of like Five Corners, but it was dual lanes and just traffic just going by like crazy. I remember standing there and looking around, and there's people walking by, and they're kind of bumping into me. And just all kinds of stuff going on. And I see these cranes all in the sky, and they're building, and these traffic's just going, and people are honking. And I'm standing there, and I'm going, God, what is all this? This is it seems so crazy to me, so busy to me. Oh, look at that. I'm just talking. Hey, they did it. This is so much better. Now I can see. So I'm standing on the street right there. I couldn't do this part. I'm standing on the street corner, and I'm going, God, what is this? It seems so crazy. It's so busy. How are we supposed to be living our lives? It just feels like chaos to me. And I remember God saying to me really clearly, Jeff, I've called you to serve those who serve others. I've called you to serve those who serve others. And then he began unpackaging that for me. He said, these guys are driving, their delivery trucks bringing food. There's the shoemakers and the shoe sellers. There's the clothes makers, the clothes sellers. People who are preparing food. People who are selling the food in the grocery stores. People who are transporting that food to people who can't. He said, I've called you to serve those who serve others. I felt that as a call for myself, but I also feel that as a call for the Christian life. And that leads us kind of into our topic this morning, which is serving. I forgot to start my timer. I'm going to try to keep onto my timer because I get rambly. See, I'm rambling right now. And so if I have my timer, then I can check in and be like, oh, okay, that's where I am on this, so I'm doing okay. Today, we're going to be talking about serving, and we're in the Spiritual Formation series. This is episode 10 of it, so that means that there's been 9 episodes before it, where we've been talking about being shaped into the image of our Creator, and that's God. God is our Creator, and we're being shaped into His image. So that doesn't mean that we're if we want to take the picture of Jesus, that we're growing beards, and we're growing our hair out, and we're going to eventually maybe get a staff and a cloak. We're not talking about the way Jesus looks. We're talking about his character, the qualities of God, and being shaped into the image of that. So that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Serving, I believe, is by God's design. I believe that God is a God who serves, and I believe that God has created us to serve each other. So I want to show you guys that here through some scripture. Just that, first of all, that God is a God who serves. So I'm going to go to Matthew 20, 25 to 28. It says, but Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world will lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. If you have your Bible, underline stuff that says that. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. Even Jesus, the Son of Man, he did not come to be served, but to serve. The highest king. And Jesus modeled this really well, I think, in John, by the washing of the feet with the disciples. Anybody here ever washed anybody's feet? A few of us. It's gross. Feet are disgusting. I'm sorry. Some people are like, I know, I like feet. We'll pray for you after the service. Feet are gross. They're gangly. They're like walking, especially then, they're like in sandals and they're walking on all the dirt and stuff like that, like going to the bathrooms. Like, you know what I mean? Like walking on everything that's outside. Feet are gross. And Jesus takes off his cloak and he gets down on his knees and he begins to wash the disciples' feet. What an intimate moment. What an awkward moment if you were to put yourself into that position. Here's Jesus, the King, the Messiah, your leader, your rabbi, and he gets down on his knees and he washes their feet. Each and every one of them. It would have taken a little while. And he says after, in John 13, after washing their feet, he put on his robe again and sat down and asked, do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done. So here's how we're going to summarize the entire Christian faith. We need to wash more feet. Just get out, grab some feet, and wash them. That is the way to God's heart. He wants us to be washing feet. I don't see a lot of feet washing going on, so that's my motivation this morning. We got to wash feet. He's saying this is an example I've given you. Do you know that the person, you know who the person was that would wash their feet in that time? Was the lowliest of the low servant. If you were the foot washer, they're coming into these higher end homes, these well-known people, they would have servants, and like the lowest on the totem pole servant would be the one who washed the feet. Jesus says, you call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's what I am. And I position myself in the lowest position to serve you. The lowest position to serve you. Now, go and do what I have done. I'm talking about the character of God here. Our Father. The Father is a God who serves. And if you think there's some separation between, well, that was Jesus, and God is like God. He's like, Old Testament smoke and fire and stuff like that. Jesus washed feet, but God's like more of a ruler. John 14, Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. If you had really known me, you would know who my Father is. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. And Philip said, Lord, show us the Father and we'll be satisfied. And Jesus replied, have I been with you all this time, Philip, and yet you still don't know who I am? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. So why are you asking me to show him to you? And in John 14, don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I speak are not my own, but my Father who lives in me and does his work through me. Jesus was washing the feet. It was God doing his work through him. This is the same heart. There's no separation. The Father's heart, Jesus' heart, God is a God who serves. In Colossians 1:15, it says, Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. Again, where it says visible image, we're not talking about looks and what he looks like here. Talking about his character, who he is, his heart. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. So the actions that Jesus walked out are the actions that the Father walks out. They're one and the same. I love how this one finishes up with, he's supreme over all creation and he humbles himself to the lowliest places. As Christians, we are called to serve. We're called to serve. I would say it's expected of us. It's a byproduct of being a Christian. I think maybe it's me. I have a picture of heaven that maybe I grew up in, and maybe some of you have a bit of this picture too, where, we live this life, it's just about to get to heaven, we've preached on that before. Heaven starts today, so we're not waiting to get to heaven kind of thing. But when we do get to heaven, that we're going to be sitting at these big long tables, and there's going to be a feast out in front of us, charcuterie board, all kinds of cheeses and meats, and we're going to have our mug, and maybe the angels will be like, hey, Michael, Gabriel, champagne's a little low, fellas. My turkey's a little cold. Mind nuking that for a second? Michael comes over and warms it up. Shoulder's a little stiff. You might give me a bit of a shoulder rub. And then we just sit around these tables feasting, banging our drinks together, Viking style. I don't believe that's what heaven's going to be like. I believe that heaven is going to be a place where we so effectively and efficiently serve each other that there will be no needs that go unmet. I truly believe that. I don't believe that when we get to heaven, we're just no responsibility, no work, no nothing. We just sit around. See, God has uniquely made us all different. And when we get to heaven, we're not all of a sudden all going to be the same. We're not going to sound the same. We're not going to talk the same. We're not going to walk the same. If that was God's purpose, he would have just done that. He would have just made his robot army, and that would have been it. He created us uniquely different for a reason and for a purpose, so that we can serve the needs of each other in different ways, and so that we need each other. We can't get through life without each other. And so if that's what heaven's going to look like, then I think that we should start applying a lot of that now. Because if we don't, heaven's going to be a really awkward place for us. It's the same with forgiveness and bitterness and stuff like that. You have an issue with a brother or sister, and you don't sort that out now. You don't go to them and resolve that. And you think you're going to be sitting in heaven one day and seeing them over there, and you're going to be like, well, God just took all that away from me. Now I don't have those things because this is heaven. I don't know. And I'm not saying, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I don't know that that's for sure, but I would challenge you and say the Bible's pretty clear on some stuff. And if we're not at least engaging and trying and moving towards and asking for God's grace in this stuff now, I don't know how much we're following Jesus. Because he sets an example for us pretty clearly. In James 2:14, he says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing and say, 'Goodbye, have a good day, stay warm and eat well,' but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do?" Some people have left the faith over this passage because they think, oh, it's all about earning now. That is missing the heart of what James is saying here. James is saying that if you are filled with the Holy Spirit, if Jesus has come and transformed your life, if you've really caught this thing, the byproduct of that will be the things that you're doing. It will be noticed. If you work in a secular place and you're the only Christian there, and there is no difference in how you conduct yourself to everybody else, that's a problem. That's a problem. James is saying, be filled with the Spirit. Your faith will be shown by the things that you do in the way that we engage. Now, I'm talking specifically about serving here this morning, so this could cover a whole lot of different things. But as we lean into our faith, that's the challenge. So when it comes to serving, though, some things have changed, And over the last 4.5 years, significantly, we're in a culture where it's easier and easier to live without needing other people. Our culture is designing it that way to make it simple for you to not even have to invite people over, not have to get some work done. You can get stuff from Amazon. I ordered from Amazon this morning more communion cups and recycle bags for at home. And they're going to be at my house probably by the time I get home. That's what Amazon told me. It's crazy. Things have changed. So I want to show you guys a bit of a pre-COVID. I hate talking about COVID, but I just want to show you guys some differences that have happened here with involvement in the local church. Let's put that for you. First one's up. So this was actually the stats from our church pre-COVID. So 4.5 years ago, involvement in the local church. Now I know I'm using some harsh words here, engaged and consume. People who are engaged and the people who are just consumeristic kind of style, come and check it out. Forgive me, I hope there's enough equity in our relationship, and you know my heart that I love you and I care for you, and I'm trying to draw you into something wonderful and great, not condemn or put judgment on anybody, anything like that. But this is what it looked like, which was fantastic. 65% engaged in some sort of a way on a Sunday morning or throughout the week in the life and community of this church. That was a good stat. Really, really good stat. And when I talked to other pastors, they'd be, I actually thought, I was like, man, why can't we get up to 80? I want to get to 90. Now, also in that 35%, there are people that need to be cared for, and we will care for them. There are people who are in seasons who need to be cared for. So we are going to care for people. That's part of the engaged. But there's also a space for everybody to be engaged on some level. There's always a space. So this was the pre-COVID involvement in the church. Fast forward to 4.5 years later, and this is what it looks like right now. That's a pretty major shift. It's a really major shift. And what that means is we have few people carrying a lot more weight, carrying a lot more responsibility. This is actually still a pretty good stat when I talk to other pastors. Some pastors are really struggling even further. But this goes beyond the church. This is a cultural thing, and this is a cultural thing that has now influenced into our church, that it's happening around us. So it doesn't matter what community event is going on right now, whether it's the party in the park, whether it's the car show, whether it's the kids' parade walks and different things like that, whether it's at Ruth and Naomi's or the Salvation Army, everybody is struggling to find people to help out. And that was a big shift that happened in the last 4.5 years. Something changed. I think as a church, we need to push back on that and reassess and relook at what it means to live in a life of community, which you're talking about next week, right? Community, something like that? Week after? 2 weeks? Right? Next week? We need to improve that. So why do we need to improve that? Because we can do so much more together. We can do so much more together. And there's gifts in this church for people. And I meant to say this at the beginning because sometimes I notice on the YouTube, people watch for 3 minutes and then they check out. YouTube and podcasts that are watching this, don't turn it off. You got to listen to this because this is for our entire church community who's not here today. There's a lot more of us, ebbs and flows of when people can come, when people can't. But in this model, there's a lot of people carrying, you can put that back up, George. There's a lot of people carrying a lot of weight that they shouldn't have, and leaders are burning out and giving up. We can't do that. Our community needs us. We're downtown. This is such a special place to be, and we can do so much more. A quick example of this is people are there's a lot of butt changing that's going on in churches. Not necessarily new people coming into churches, not necessarily new people coming to Christ. It's just kind of seats changing. I don't like that church. I don't like this church. Doesn't have what it has for me. And people are going to churches and going, what can I get from this? What does this church have to offer me? We had 4 young adults come in probably 8 or 9 months ago. And they sat down and we're like, hey, yes, there's some young adults coming. We used to, be pre-COVID, there was a whole bunch of young adults. And now it's like Joan and Rebecca and like Josh and Molly, and they're not even really young adults anymore. They're all like adults with kids and stuff. So we're like, man, yeah, there's 4 new young adults here. That's pretty cool. So I went and talked to them after, and they started telling me that they go to another church, but the church doesn't have anything for young adults there. So they're shopping around and looking for a church that would have something for young adults. And I said, well, we don't have anything for young adults right now either. And I go, oh man, we really love this church. And, and I said, here, let me challenge you for a second. Why don't you go back to your pastor of the church that you've been going to for however long and sit down with him, schedule a meeting, and say, hey, we notice there's nothing for young adults here. There's the 4 of us. Under your help, your guidance, maybe we could start something up. Maybe we could be the ones who could engage in this and make it happen. And he was gracious. He's like, yeah, that hits pretty hard. Thanks for that. And I'm like, so go back to him. I don't want you to come here and leave that other church when God has placed you there and is maybe calling you to start something there. And if you go to him and he says, no, we're not doing that, forget it, then come on back here and we'll figure something out. I haven't seen them since. So I'm hoping that, I didn't just tick them off, and maybe that was a great thing. But that's just the mentality. That's just the one picture of the mentality of how people are looking at different churches when they come to it. What can I get out of it? But I do think there are some things in serving for us, and they're good things. So let's go to that next one, George. Serving brings dignity, humility, and connection. These are all good things. So I'll just walk through each of these. Let me check my timer here. Oh, it's great. Okay. I'm further along than I thought I would be at that time. So dignity, what serving does is it brings dignity to people, and that means that it basically says something, they are worthy of respect and honor. And I want you to know that each one of you are worthy of respect and honor. You are. We are all made in the image of Christ, all of us. And anybody who comes in here is, and is deserving of honor and respect. And one of the great things about having the opportunity to serve or engaging in serving in a church is it brings dignity back to a person. It gives them purpose. It gives them meaning. Those are good things to have. I'm not talking about identity. I'm talking about purpose and meaning. Purpose and meaning are important for us to have. We need to have purpose. We need to have meaning. When our identity gets tied up in that purpose and meaning, that's where things go awry. But we need purpose and meaning, and serving can bring dignity. Anybody want to have some more humility in their life? A couple people? Who likes hanging out with somebody who has like a ton of pride? Anybody? Nobody likes hanging out with really prideful people? Oh, okay. Who likes hanging out with somebody who's really humble? Vern does, yeah. We like hanging out with people who are humble. Being a humble person is a good thing. And serving, I believe, is like the doorway to humility. When you serve and you get involved without expecting anything in return for that, it develops humility in your life. One thing with the serving thing, though, and it's different than the rest of the spiritual formation stuff that we've talked about, is this one is kind of that seen thing, like James was talking about. When you're serving, you're actually seen for the most part. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes there's lots of places to serve, and that helps with developing humility. But if you're on the stage and part of the worship team, if you're preaching, you're up front, you're going to get challenged with pride. Pride will challenge you, and you're going to have to really face that, and it'll help you become humble, or it's going to help you become something else. But if you allow it to, it'll create great humility in your life. And then when you're serving in areas that aren't noticed, it develops a wonderful humility as well, because you're doing these things and nobody really knows. Did you guys know that Melanie makes coffee pretty much every single Sunday? Yeah? Did you guys know that? Did everybody know that that's who puts a coffee pot on? Right? Comes in early at 8:30 to make sure it's on for 9:30 when it's coffee and snack time. Every Sunday, aside from when she's got to go and do stuff with her kids. And just serves in that way. It's wonderful. I'm sorry to embarrass you. Not sorry. You're humble, right? Humility. Melanie could probably use some help in that area. Some other people to help in serving coffee and cleaning it up and different things so that it's not just on the one person, right? Connection. We are a very lonely culture. Loneliness is a problem. All the way through, I think, even in the Middle Ages, where we're at, where you got your wife and your kids, and they're all running around. You're so distracted, you might not realize the loneliness. But the younger kids, the youth, the seniors, very, very lonely. Serving brings connection because we do stuff together. You get to be in relationship with people, partnering with people, doing works together. It brings great connection, and it's actually a great way to learn from people who are maybe a bit further ahead in their Christian walk. It's more caught than taught, right? Good Vineyard slogan. Things are more caught than taught. You start hanging out with people who've been further down the road, and you see how they operate. For instance, me and Ed, we went for coffee a couple months ago, and we walked down and we go into the coffee shop. This is just spending time with somebody. Ed goes in and he gets up to the front where he's ordering his coffee, and instead of just kind of, this is what I want, this is what I need, and I'm going to pay for this now kind of thing, he looks the person in the eye, and you see joy on his face. He loves them, and he doesn't even know them. And he wants to know everything about them. How are you doing? How was your day? What's going on? That's so great. Thank you for ordering my coffee. As I'm watching that, I'm learning that, hey, he's taking the time for people. It's more caught than taught. Maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can slow down enough while I'm in that interaction and ask that person about their day and how they're doing. Hanging out with people who are further ahead, they'll show you lots of stuff. So connection. Serving brings connection. And really cool connections. One of the neat things about when we were in the midst of all the COVID craziness was we were filming the worship stuff down here. And so the worship teams would come in, and it would be one or the other of us, and we'd be just a really small, like 5 of us down here, kind of trying to stream stuff and figure out the sound and all that stuff. But we got to hang out together, serving together in that way, and grew deep connections through that time. Connection is really important. Now, this is from, Megan, what's the guy's name? E. Bailey, Kenneth E. Bailey? Kenneth E. Bailey. So he has a book, Seeing Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes. Really cool book. In that he says, regarding connection, the only way to build true love between two people or two groups of people is to stand in need of each other. Only way to build true love. So a husband and wife, if you have, as a husband, everything you need, and you need nothing from your wife, and your wife has, I don't think you're going to grow very close together. We need each other, and we need to stand in need of each other. The Chilliwack Vineyard is in need of you. We need you. We need you to be involved in this community so that we can walk out some of the vision that God has given this church. We need you. We stand in need. We truly do. I think there's a flaw when the church or Christianity doesn't stand in need of people, when it becomes so powerful that it doesn't need people, and then it becomes it's building hospitals and employment, and these are education, and these are all good things, but when you don't stand in need of something, you begin to control it. And that's not a good thing. And so I think a healthy, functional church is a place where the church stands in need of the people that come to it, not something where we can just put it on. We stand in need of each other. And that's the way to build true love between two people or two groups of people. So also groups. You want to build love between groups of people with our Muslim friends, whichever group you think of. You got to stand in need of each other. That's how you build love and relationship. Otherwise, one is extracting from the other, and they're unfortunately, one of those parties won't feel any dignity in that. Okay, I'm doing great on time, I think. 28. This next slide, I'm going to walk through these because this is where we get practical here. This is just in this local church, but there's a lot of ways to serve, and I know a lot of people do serve in other ways too, where they're bringing food for people or serving in, helping at Ruth and Naomi's or the Salvation Army. There's lots of different ways, but I have these sheets here as well, and you can grab one of these, and on the top of it says name, phone number, and email, areas, and available only Sundays. So if you're just available Sunday mornings, you circle that, and if you're not available or if you're available outside of Sunday mornings and Sunday mornings, you circle no. It'll make sense when you read it. But let's go through a few of these. So greeting. This is a great place when the stranger comes into the church and they meet somebody who just says, oh, hey, welcome this morning. Hey, you know what? No assigned seating. Sit wherever you want, but the comfier chairs are at the front. There's coffee and tea over here, and there's snacks, and the bathroom's around the corner. If you have any questions, you come and find me, and I'll answer them for you. That takes the edge off somebody who's coming in that's new, and all of a sudden makes them feel welcome. So greeting. Now, a lot of these things we had set up prior to, and we just haven't got back to getting it all set up. We want to get this set up again. Serving communion. So do you guys remember back pre-COVID, there would always be somebody holding the communion, serving you the communion, blessing you as you came to the communion. And so we want to get back to that, where when it's time for communion, there'd be somebody who had agreed to prior to, they would go and they'd just pick up the tray and they would just bless the people coming through. Just serving in that way. The coffee setup and cleanup, I already talked about that. But yeah, come in and set up the coffee or clean it up after. That's one of the ones where if you see it, go ahead and do it. If it's after the service and things are winding down and you see that the coffee and stuff's still out, go ahead and clean it up. I'm not going to stop you. Space setup and tear down. So we typically get lots of help tearing down the space when my boys get going on it and start stacking the chairs. Some other people join in. But the setup is always done by me and Sawyer, typically me and Sawyer, sometimes Liam, setting up the chairs for Sunday morning. We come in on a Friday or a Saturday or early Sunday morning, and we set them all back up because they need to be out for the week, the different events. I need some help in that. Week after week after week after week, a week, doing that, plus other things, it gets tiring. We could use some help. Media, or as George calls it, the ministry of the mouse. That one's just clicking the mouse, doing the PowerPoint, following along with the slides. That's just to come in on a Sunday morning and do it. And then sound, getting involved doing sound and learning that. That's actually a really cool skill to have. Again, it's not for everybody, but if you are a little techie and you don't have both hearing aids in, you can hear a little bit, it's helpful. Then we can train you up on sound, and it's actually a place where you can be involved in that way. Worship teams, you go and see Sam, And Michael and Trudy have a worship night at their house. It's kind of a place to be able to start connecting with people so Sam can do the American Idol thing, and go, yeah, that's not necessarily your gift, but we love you. And thank you for trying. Prayer. We have prayer at 9:15 Sunday mornings here where we get together and pray for the service. That serves your community. Praying outside of that. Praying for your leadership. Praying for people in the community. Home groups. That's leading, hosting, bringing snacks to, whatever it might be. Home groups. We need people in that. A listening ear. This is an easy one for some of us. If you're not a talker and you can listen, maybe sign up and we can set something up where you can just go for walks with people and just listen to them. Sometimes people just need to share their story. They just need to be heard. I threw this one in, front garden maintenance. I was thinking it would be really cool if this front garden, I know it's owned by the city and they maintain it and they take care of it. But what if that garden here looked the best? Rake the leaves out. This morning it's all full of leaves and stuff like that. Turn up the soil, and it just looks wonderful up front. And even in the front, the awnings need to be washed off every once in a while. The walkway could be cleared out, pressure washed, and different things like that. Painting. We are due for some painting around here. Patching and painting. And actually this week I'm going to go pick up a whole bunch of free paint that's been given to us in unsealed can, or sealed cans still. It's all brand new. Got a call randomly about this guy who says he's got a bunch of paint through Barris and anyways, other connections. So we're going to pick that up. So we're going to have a whole bunch of paint, and we can do a whole bunch of painting. So if you like painting, it'd be really cool to freshen this whole space up, brighten it up, patch some things up. Where am I? Kids and youth ministry. Aaron, Josh, Molly, they could use help in these areas. These ones here will have criminal record checks. We value our safety of our kids. So we're going to check into things and make sure that they're safe. But here's a really easy one, and I want to call out the parents on this one. If your kids are in the nursery, or your kids are in kids ministry, or your kids are in youth, why not talk to Josh and Molly and say, or Aaron, say, hey, maybe once a month, and if everybody did it, it'd be like 8 to 12 weeks, and then you'd be back on again. If every one of the parents jumped in and said, I want to help out too. Like 8 to 12 weeks, you'd be on this rotation, and that would be it, and you could be involved in serving in those areas. The barista, I just think it would be really cool to have fancy coffees on Sunday morning, and I just don't want to have to be back there making them all. So if you'd be interested in that, I could train you up on that. And then that's also for different events that we do. There was an art thing that happened here a couple weeks ago, and I just ran the barista and was able to raise like $260 for youth programs, just running it through that. So somebody who runs that, raising money for the church and different youth things we're doing, is a really cool thing to do. Repairs and improvements. If you're a handyman, come and see me. We got lots of repairs and lots of improvements to do around this space. Here's another easy one. The signs out in the back and the front. So we have the vineyard sign at the back and the vineyard sign, front and back. Most Sundays they're out there and I bring them back in. Ron, where'd he go? Ron's gone. Ron brought it back in last Sunday. He's like, hey, just letting you know I brought the sign back in for you. Man, it's awesome. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. So those are just simple ways. If you're coming in and you see that they're not out, throw them out. If you see that they're out after the service, bring them in. Sunday snacks. Janice has been managing the Sunday snacks, if you didn't know that, for a long time. And it would be good to have some people that could bring the snacks for 9:30 and the snacks for the break. Right now, we just always run to save on and get some sort of stuff for 9:30 beforehand. But it'd be great to have snacks for both. So if that's something that you could do for the break and stuff like that, you can see Janice and get on her list for the snacks and be part of that. Equipping night. So Merv came to me. I don't remember when this was now, a while ago now. It feels like it was like a year ago. But Merv said, hey, I'd love to do some teaching on the prophetic. Cool. Okay. What would that look like? Wrote it out. This is what it all looked like and planned it all out. And then did some equipping nights. If you have a gift of teaching and a gift, so paired with, I have this gift God's given me, and I have the gift of teaching, need to be the two things together, then come and see us, and maybe there's an equipping night we can do. As a community, it takes all of us, and there's gifts within us that need to be shared. Games nights. Now, this is a fun one if somebody wants to own that one. Why not have a family game night here once a month, once every 2 months? We don't have to worry about it. It's not something Meg and I have to come down, unlock, and lock up. Come down, open it up, set up some tables, figure out some snacks, invite people out, let us know what it is, and do some family game nights. Our movie nights. Fun way to get together as a community. Somebody comes down, throws a movie on. We got the popcorn machine, making some popcorn, and hanging out as a community that way. Encouragers. That's another easy one on Sunday mornings. Just go around and encourage people. So I threw it in there. So everybody should circle that one. Building coordinator for different rentals. I know some of these they take different levels of skill, and this is getting super practical, but I want to walk through all these things. Building coordinator, it would be for the different events that go on throughout the week here. Somebody to come in, turn the lights on, unlock the doors, lock the doors back up, make sure that everybody's out, nobody's sleeping in the bathrooms, and set the alarm. And then outreach programs. If you have a heart for evangelism and you have an idea for some outreach programs, let's talk about it and see what we can put together for that. We also have lots of outreach programs coming up as we get into the summer that we'll be engaging with. So when you hear about those are good opportunities to get involved. Leading communion. So like Victoria did this morning, we do it every Sunday. You've seen it, 100 times. Somebody shares something about communion. We take communion together. And I think it would be really cool to see more people in our community to be sharing about communion. Leading that. I know it's a little nerving coming up here, so that's not for everybody. But if you do have something, come and see us, and we can talk about that. The filming. So I film every Sunday. We put it up on YouTube and on the podcast. So if that was an area you could serve, just running the camera, filming it, even better, editing and all that stuff would be great too. And then social media, sharing different things on social media is always great, letting people know what's going on. And preaching. If you have the gift of preaching, go and see Megan. You got to have the gift of preaching and teaching. But there may be some of us that, who knows? And maybe we can try it out and share it to youth and start taking little steps towards a place where we can be speaking one day and preaching in front of the church. It's a community, and it takes a community to do this all together. So this is my call to us, to those hopefully watching this one that are in a community that aren't here today, to get engaged and get involved in some way, because I really believe that God wants to do something really cool with this community right in the downtown core. And if we do it together, we can do so much more. We can go so much further together. By engaging together and getting involved together, we can do a lot more. And I do believe that is God's kingdom and how his kingdom is supposed to work. The first church, they took care of each other so well that there was no need. Now, I don't know that we'll get to that place. I know we have people who need to be served, and we're going to serve you. You're in a season where you need to be served. We're going to take care of you. But if you're in a season that you're not in that place, then my challenge is to get involved and get engaged in some way. Let's pray. Jesus, we don't know exactly what the next 5 years is going to look like for this church, the next 10 years or the next 20 years. But we surrender that to you, and we hold our hearts out to you, and we say, Jesus, I'm in. I'm in to see your kingdom come. I'm in to see your will done. show me how I can engage. Show me how I can be more connected with this community. Amen. Your music's so gentle, Sam. It makes me feel like I got to go into like some dramatic ministry now. It's actually not going to be so dramatic. Yeah, you can do it. You know, like those Southern pastors. I think it was Jonah sent me the one at one time. It was like, as he was preaching, there was someone on the organ, and as he would get built up, they would get louder and louder on the organ, and they'd follow his kind of moon. Maybe we could start doing that here. I have these here, and these are just some sheets you could pass here. Let's do this. Let's just pass them out. You can throw them away if you want. Let's just grab one and pass it around. Grab one, pass it out. Kind of do that. Grab one, pass it out. You'll see that there's a place. I tell you, this is going to get practical today. There's a place. You can grab one and pass those along. There's lots of pens over here at the back. But just put your name on there, your phone number, your email, and areas where you may be able to serve. And then let me know your availability on there. Fold that up, crumple it up, whatever you like, and stick it in the bins, the offering bins. Take it home and pray over it for the week. See if there's an area that God's speaking to you. If you're already engaged in serving in some way, I'm not asking for more. So don't feel that. And yeah, bring them back and we'll see what we can do. See what God does with this community when we get more engaged and get some things going. Sound good? Yeah. Everybody's good? Nobody was too offended or no? You're good? All right. Love you guys.